Another edition of Behind the Lines presented by TheLines.com and BetMGM Sportsbook. Joined as always by Christian Cipollini, trading manager over at BetMGM, talking election odds. Just kidding. NFL Week 10 odds. And in Week 9, Christian, favorites finished 14-1 straight up, including Kansas City, coming back and winning in overtime against Tampa Bay on Monday night. Just the third week over the last 15 years with favorites winning 14-plus games straight up with that one loss. So I'm assuming another tough week for BetMGM.
Yeah, exactly that. It didn't end up being as bad as about 2 weeks ago was. We had a couple that went our way. For one, the Bills not covering against the Dolphins, that was one that went our way. But a lot outside of that didn't go well. The Commanders covering was not good, so I think the Giants had two two-point conversion attempts. If they would have gotten one of those, probably would have changed our week around, but they didn't. So that was a big loss for us. And then the Lions, like they are every week, another big loss for us.
To give you credit, you liked both of those teams last week against the spread, so hopefully you profited for your individual wallet, not for BetMGM. But back to Mahomes on Monday night. Now 15-1-2 against the spread in the second half over his last 18 starts. Just incredible, including Super Bowl 58 against the 49ers, Kansas City, an 8.5-point favorite against Denver on Sunday afternoon. Keep in mind the Ravens closed 9.5 against the Broncos in Baltimore on Sunday in Week 9 before blowing out Bo Nix and company. But speaking of the 6-3 Ravens, they're 6-point home favorites against the 4-5 Bengals on Thursday night. Baltimore winning and covering at Cincinnati in overtime in Week 5. A heck of a game that saw the Bengals up by double digits in the fourth quarter. So Lamar consistently coming back in the second half of that one. Jackson tied with Josh Allen atop the MVP odds board at plus 300 over at BetMGM. Joe Burrow still in the race, right around 20-1. Total of 52.5 in this game. So curious, a couple days before kickoff, Christian, what's the ratio of Ravens versus Bengals bets and money?
Yeah, as of right now, we're probably about 65, maybe 70% on the Ravens. I feel like that's probably about where it'll be. I want to say 65 is probably a good number where we'll probably end up by kickoff. We do project this to be one of the biggest Thursday games that we think we'll have outside of probably opening day. This projects to be a pretty high bet on game. Obviously, two good teams, division teams. So it's a pretty good Thursday night game.
Any player props stand out? The last time we saw these two teams play, Jamar Chase had a couple scores, so I'm assuming he's near the top of the list.
Yeah, so that was what I was going to comment on. When I went into this, I was expecting to see a lot of Derrick Henry overs because that's what we've gotten over the past couple of weeks. But what I did see was a combo of two passing attacks essentially getting hit on their overs. Lamar Jackson passing yards has been hit. That number has gone up. Zay Flowers receiving yards has been hit. That's gone up. Same with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. So early money suggests that this will be a high passing attack game.
And over to the Sunday morning matchup, the 2-7 New York Giants against the 2-7 Carolina Panthers. Whale of a game. Just kidding again. The Giants 5-point favorites, total of 41.5. I'm more so curious about the total in this game just because Carolina, in their 9 games this season, 7 of them have gone to the over, while on the flip side for New York, just three of their 9 games have gone to the over. So 3-6, 6 of them going to the under. What's the majority of the handle look like for the total bets and money for this game?
Yeah, we tend to take more overs, so that's what we're seeing about now. It's probably about 70-ish% to the over, so nothing too crazy at this moment. But yeah, you do comment on a couple interesting things that the Panthers, their defense is pretty bad, and they don't end up scoring a lot of points, but they do give up a lot of points. And the Giants seems to be a little bit of the opposite, where their defense is a little bit better than expected, but their offense doesn't end up scoring. So I kind of expected this to be a little bit lower of a total, but yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Giants defensive line has been dominant outside of the Commanders game in Week 9. So worth monitoring and looking into if they can take advantage of Bryce Young and that Panthers protection. Looking at the afternoon slate, Christian, the 6-2 Steelers taking on the 7-2 Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels, the odds-on favorite to win Rookie of the Year. Pittsburgh coming off the bye. Looking at Washington, 3-point home favorites priced at even money to the point spread. And the Commanders tied with the Detroit Lions, who you mentioned earlier, for the league's best ATS record at 7-1-1. Detroit 7-1 in that department. Pittsburgh, though not too shabby, 6-2 ATS. What do you expect to be the need for this game? Just because you have a very popular team across the country in the Steelers, and I'm assuming so at BetMGM, and then one of the hottest teams, ATS, in Washington.
Yeah, Washington has been a team that we haven't liked all season. Them and the Lions have been our two, probably our biggest losers this season has been come from those two teams. As of right now, we were briefly at Commanders -2.5. When we were there, we got hit pretty hard. Ended up back at 3, where we've taken a little bit more Steelers action. When I look at the money line, we're right at about 50-50. So I don't think that will continue. I think we'll end up getting more Commanders bets as we get closer to kickoff. But the earlier action, money line, we got it even. But right now it's probably just people hitting those key numbers. But I probably expect more Commanders money.
Yeah, if you're looking to jump in on Washington or Pittsburgh, remember, if you sign up with BetMGM Sportsbook using promo code TheLines50, you get $1,550 back in bonus bets, including a $50 bonus bet win or lose over at BetMGM. More details at thelines.com. Now, looking at the late afternoon slate, NFC East rivalry kicking off in Dallas, the 6-2 Eagles. Your Eagles taking on the 3-5 Dallas Cowboys. Philly up from 2.5-point road favorites on the look-ahead line when Dak Prescott was in, to now 7.5-point road favorites, with him likely being placed on injured reserve. So it's going to be Jalen Hurts against Cooper Rush. But it does seem like CeeDee Lamb, dealing with that shoulder injury that he suffered against the Falcons on Sunday, and Micah Parsons, who's been out for the last few weeks, both of them are expected, reportedly, to suit up for this game. The ratio so far, though, I'm assuming is more so toward Philadelphia, but it is interesting with this line move.
Yeah, of course. And a lot of our early action, now we're at 7.5. A lot of that action came when we were at 6.5 and 7. People just trying to get that key number before it goes over to the 7.5, which is where we're at now. So we have at the 7.5, we haven't seen too much Eagles action, but outside of that, yeah, it's been about 80-85%, even trending up towards 90 on Eagles action. Like you said, if Dak was playing in this, I think we'd be a lot closer to 50-50. The fact that he's not, I can only imagine that we're going to take Eagles money the whole way up until game time.
Worth noting, too, with props, when Prescott was out a couple years ago and Cooper Rush was under center for Dallas, CeeDee Lamb had some relatively big games, nearly 90 yards and a score in week 3 of Prescott being out. So I believe that was his second game inactive. And then in the third one, 6 grabs for 97 yards and a touchdown. So could be worth looking into Lamb props against a vulnerable Eagles secondary, even with Rush under center. As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up with BetMGM yet, use promo code THELINES, that's the lines one word, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code THELINES. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll then receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure to use bonus code THELINES when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, and 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire within 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code THELINES and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. On to the finale of the NFL card that we're going to discuss, at least when it comes to the BetMGM Sportsbook handle. The 7-1 Detroit Lions, also 7-1 against the spread, as I mentioned earlier, taking on the 6-3 Texans. Houston, though, only 3-6 against the spread, but coming off of that mini bye after losing to the Jets on Thursday Night Football. Speaking of line movement, Detroit opened right around 4.5 for a brief period of time on Sunday night, but this line shot down quickly to Lions -3. And you look at Stroud's struggles against really, really dominant defensive lines. And yes, Detroit without Aiden Hutchinson, but they did just acquire Za'Darius Smith as of Tuesday morning as we record on November 5th, Election Day, from the Cleveland Browns. So like the Cowboys-Eagles game, I'm assuming Houston will be a need come Sunday.
Yeah, I touched on it earlier that Detroit has been one of our least favorite teams from the books perspective. Yeah, that continues this week. You mentioned that line move all the way back down to 3. We got hit very hard at 3. Only Detroit action at that -3, so that's gotten us up to that 3.5. Even with that, we're still taking more lines than we are Texans money. And again, I think that will just continue just because this entire season, every Lions game has been significant Lions action.
And going back to last week, got to give you credit again. You hit with Detroit at Green Bay. Luckily, I didn't take any action in that one, but I did have the Giants against the Commanders, so you beat me out there. But what bets are you looking for on the Week 10 slate?
Yeah, I got 2 that I like this week. The one, it's gone against me, so I usually don't like to see that, but it's the 49ers. They were at 6.5 yesterday. This has dropped down to 5.5. They're going to Tampa, but I think McCaffrey being back is obviously the key factor here. This offense hasn't looked the same without him. I think they get him back this week, and I think they look a lot better, especially with a still banged up Tampa team. I know that they looked pretty good last night, but I'll take this at 5.5 because I was thinking it was going to trend towards 7 if the Bucs had maybe looked a little worse last night, but this dropped down to 5.5.
Yeah, short week for Tampa Bay, too. So we've seen teams struggle in that regard. But I wanted to shift over to college basketball ball before we get you out of here, Christian. Looking at the futures market and veering back to Monday night on opening night of the season, Gonzaga tipped off the year at 17-1 to win the national championship. They dominate Baylor, the largest win by any team against an AP top 10 opponent since Villanova blitzed Oklahoma by 44 points in the 2016 Final Four. That was the Buddy Hield Sooners-led offense that was really red hot going into that Final Four, and Villanova shot the lights out to knock them off before taking down the UNC Tar Heels at the buzzer with Chris Jenkins. So Gonzaga, back to the Zags, now down to 11-1 to win the title after dominating Scott Drew's Baylor Bears in a national championship rematch going back to 2021. Gonzaga still behind Alabama, Duke, UConn, and Kansas in the national title market at BetMGM. But what's the liability look like for Mark Few's team coming off of that win, just with the title movement so far?
Yeah, so they're okay for us at the moment. I think what usually helps us from a Gonzaga standpoint is the fact that we're not live there for digital betting, so that helps us not take a lot of bets when they have an insane performance like they did last night. For us, Duke's our liability with Cooper Flag, and I think that's going to continue. So as of right now, Gonzaga's okay. I think we'll probably be okay on the season on them, just because of the fact that that was a pretty significant line move to get that down from. We were actually at 19-1 for a little bit, so I think most of our bets are going to come kind of reactionary off that win, and we did move a little bit earlier. So, yeah.
Have you taken in any college basketball futures bets, or just rooting against Duke at this point?
I haven't personally on this one. Usually, my coworker Seamus is our big college basketball guy, and he usually feeds me some picks. So I need to give him a call and figure out which one I like this year. But no, I personally haven't at this point. I'm just going to be rooting against Duke.
Fair enough. I will say, for anybody watching or listening and that listens to the Beat the Closing Number podcast, I have a Ole Miss ticket long shot bet at around 80-1. I think Chris Beard's team has a chance to finish top 3 in the SEC with a veteran laden lineup, a couple big transfers coming in, including Malik Dia from Belmont. So if anybody's looking for a long shot, I think Ole Miss is worth a look. But he is Christian Cipollini over at BetMGM Sportsbook, trading manager for BetMGM. Always appreciate the insight, Christian.
Yeah, of course. Good luck to everyone this week.
Thanks for watching and listening to this edition of Behind the Lines presented by BetMGM and TheLines.com. So long, everybody, and good luck with your NFL Week 10 picks.